I've said this before 100 times, ProductHunt changed my life. It's the reason, looking at ProductHunt in the early days is a big reason I started talking with my future co-founders about new products we could build. It's a big reason why we left Yahoo and started a company together. We launched on it and it gave us our first users and allowed us to raise a pre-seed and got us started. It made my last company go viral when we launched and things really took off. So it's changed my life, and it's changed so many of my friends' lives, so many ways. That when it felt like I had the opportunity to shape the next chapter, I just had to step in. I'm Rajiv. I'm the CEO at ProductHunt. And before that, I was the co-founder at Tandem, which is a virtual office for remote teams. And I'm half Filipino.
All right. The Filipino part. For all the Filipinos out there, Pinoy. So Rajiv, can you tell us a little bit about how you became the CEO of ProductHunt? Because that's kind of like that's a story that not all people know, right? So here's your chance to tell your story.
Well, ProductHunt changed my life. I was a very early user when it was really just a newsletter, and it was a big part of how I decided to start a company with two friends that I worked with at Yahoo. And fast forward, we started a company, went through all the pivots and twists and turns, and I left that company a little while ago and took some time off and was thinking about what's next. And Ryan Hoover, the founder of ProductHunt, had been an angel investor in my last company. So
wait, you're making yourself seem small. Like, tell us a little bit more about that company.
Well, Tandem is a virtual office for remote teams. We went through a bunch of pivots, and we launched right before the pandemic, and really struck a chord, I think, in a good way. So yeah, we raised a pretty for the time pretty hot seed round from Andreessen, and we went through really an incredible spike over the pandemic. We ran into difficulties when, like a couple of years after the pandemic. I think there are a variety of factors. The big ones being just video burnout. People stopped talking on video as much, and then the second wave being the return to office, which I understand. Offices are amazing. Like, in person is amazing, but we did struggle to grow and to find new teams that really resonated with Tandem with the return to office.
And then what happened next?
We did a pivot around hybrid work, because that was the pull we were getting from the market. Like, everybody was returning to the office, and the question was, how do you bridge in person and remote work? Like the second class citizen problem. People who aren't in the office don't feel as included in conversations. And so we launched a solution that was kind of crazy in hindsight. It let you take computers in the office and set up a system where remote people can teleport around the office and be part of spontaneous conversations in the open floor, in meeting rooms. And two things were true about this. One is, it really did work. Like, people would forget who was in the office and who wasn't in the office. And the second thing was, it was really expensive and hard to set up, and nobody knew where the budget was coming from. It was a difficult go-to-market motion. It was hardware. Reliability was hard. It was just a very, very tough product to build.
High friction
For adoption. Yeah. So we launched that, and that launch resonated a lot in terms of like the vision, and it got a lot of play in media, but almost no actual customers. Like, it did not resonate nearly as well. So we, at that point, we're out of runway, and we decided to shut the company down. But we did it in kind of an unusual way, where we kept the app alive. Actually, two of the engineers on our team pitched us on just keeping the product alive as sort of a side project. And so we gave them the company, or we gave them the app, and they've been running it since. Actually, we use Tandem at ProductHunt, which is pretty cool.
We use that in our call.
Oh
you
yeah.
and I.
Yeah. It's still there's still a couple hundred companies that use it. It's very stable. It's not being very actively developed, but yeah.
And how was the transition from giving up the company, or realizing that you had a difficult go-to market and not a lot of customers? How did you make the decision to shift to ProductHunt?
Oh, that was a whole. I mean, it's tough to shut down a company. It's just tough. Probably, if people have been through it, mechanically it's tough. You have to take care of the legal situation, the finances, the team. Like, we built an incredible team, and while it's cool, I get to work with some of them now at ProductHunt, but helping everybody find kind of their next chapter felt like a lot of stress, and then just like there's this feeling of failure, right? Like Tandem was such a personal app for me. Like my two core values are like unlocking the potential in other people and in myself and in teams, and building. And my other core value would be like co-creation, or like almost collaboration. So Tandem was sort of me in an app form. And so I think maybe a lot of founders can relate to this, but when it felt like the world didn't want Tandem, it kind of felt like the world didn't want me. So definitely like it took me a little while to unwind from that experience and to like reflect on what I learned and what we did and what we accomplished. But I took a good amount of time off, maybe like 9 months, and did a lot of rock climbing, which is my like other passion. And it was nice.
We are going rock climbing soon.
We're going to do a rock climbing event. So it was nice to have a complete shift, and a little bit of distance. And then actually looking around for what to do next, I ended up going to Dropbox and building new products, for a bit, which was really, I mean, I learned a ton. It was cool to be in a larger company, but still in the founder's seat, like building new products. I got to work with Drew directly, which was pretty cool. Like, he's still very much in founder mode. Honestly, I was at Dropbox building new products, like learning, and then Ryan reached out. Without going into like too much detail, the previous CEO wanted to move on. Ash Higgins, she did an awesome job, but ProductHunt had sort of pivoted. So ProductHunt's story, like, it was acquired by AngelList a while ago, and at AngelList for a while. But then a few years ago, Josh Buckley, lead investor, had the vision to spin it out into a standalone entity. So it spun out. There are a bunch of investors. Andreessen and Sequoia were the main investors, aside from Josh. And it became this venture-funded entity. And initially, the thesis was to combine ProductHunt with a venture fund. Ash was a general manager at Clearbit, and before that launched the mobile app at Reddit. So she had a lot of experience with communities. I think she was like a great CEO to kind of run ProductHunt in this world of ProductHunt plus a venture fund. But then after running that experiment, they came to the conclusion that it's really hard to compete with YC, with Y Combinator, and they folded the venture fund. And with ProductHunt, in terms of just ProductHunt, I think for a variety of reasons, Ash didn't feel like she was the right, CEO for that chapter. So she was sort of looking for somebody to take the reins, and we started talking, and I felt like there was a lot of shared vision on like the potential of ProductHunt. So I stepped in. It actually was like a Twitter DM where Ryan said like, "Hey, crazy idea. Would you want to step in as CEO?"
All thing happens in the valley.
It does. It does. And honestly, like, you go through talks and negotiations, but when I got the DM, my first thought, I felt two things. One was like this sense of potential, like, oh shit, ProductHunt could be so much more. And the second one was, yeah, I'm probably going to do this. Like, this is one of those doors that doesn't open up a lot.
What's the ProductHunt ecosystem like right now? Now with the wave of AI coming in, lots of GenAI founders, what do you see happening that you can share with our audience?
The leaderboard is more exciting and more vibrant than ever. Builders have more tools to build great products. It's harder. It's of course hard to stand out. It's like harder and harder to stand out. And there's some particulars that are unique to what's happening with GenAI that I'll circle back to in just like a minute. A lot of it is the same as it's always been, which is like ProductHunt is this arena where the best builders kind of duke it out to see, you know, who has the best app.
The gladiators.
The gladiators,
in
yeah.
the arena. Let's go. Okay.
And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like whether you get number one or not, it's still, you're going to learn a ton by launching. The first thing that I launched, like a Web3 portfolio tracker, I think we got number 6. And we got so much usage and traction and feedback that it made our pre-seed round happen. It made us give us the confidence to jump in full time. Like, it opened up a world for us. And so I'd say, like, launches don't always, you know, not every launch is going to go the way you want it to, but that's why you launch. You got to see whether people want this. With GenAI specifically, I think we saw we've been seeing a constant this like wave happening of infrastructure. Like, there are a lot of dev tool categories that are being re-examined.
AI stuff and adjacencies.
Yeah, AI and adjacencies, and you know, a lot of classic dev tool categories need to be re-examined in the light of AI. Like one that's been on my mind recently is observability. Like, how do you tell what your LLMs are doing and whether they're performing well?
Well, that's really hard.
Evaluation and observability. And there are a bunch of startups working on that, and I don't know that anybody's solved it. And it's really exciting to see. So there's definitely a wave of infrastructure and dev tools happening for the applications of AI. I think we saw an initial wave of like very thin GPT wrappers that are, I don't know, though. I think one we saw a lot of was you know, like travel itinerary planning, because it's just super easy to build, but they're not really compelling.
Yeah, like anyone can build
that. And also you can just ask GPT. Yeah, ask ChatGPT
like in 3 minutes
Claude
with a prompt engineering.
Not
thing.
even in 3 minutes, just like in 0 minutes. Just ask it for results. And maybe 6 months ago would have required some prompt engineering, and now it doesn't. And the things that require prompt engineering now may not require that much prompt engineering in the future. So I think the thin products are
it's not defensible. There's no
and it's not that interesting to the market. You know, so we don't see them doing that well on the leaderboard anymore.
So what does well, like, on the leaderboard in terms of GenAI?
I mean, apps that solve a real problem. So here one that comes to mind recently is Toby.
Okay.
Toby. So Toby lets you work with people in any language. It does real-time translation on a video call mid-sentence. So like a 2-second delay. It's like having a live translator. And they designed it specifically around work. So it plugs into you know, Zoom or whatever your video call service is. And you can talk in English and the other people can talk in Spanish, and you can have a live conversation. It's kind of a crazy app, and it's like very difficult to build. I think the founders shipped over 30 updates to the app in the month leading up to their launch.
Well,
so they were grinding.
Once a day.
Yeah, once a day updates. And the launch, you know, got them a ton of initial customers. So that's a great example of one, it's solving incredible need, which is to work with people across language barriers. Like that would just create so much more openness in the global, workforce.
It really unlocks economic value, right?
It unlocks a ton of economic value and just like human potential, right? Like to be able to work with people across cultures is you're going to get things from other cultures that you wouldn't from if you just work within your own. And it's uniquely enabled by AI, like the voice to text, text to translation, and text to voice.
Super practical use of the AI technology.
Yeah. But to do it really well and to unlock that use case, you really need to do real-time translation. And that requires a bunch of craft in the desktop application, in reducing latency that is extremely non-trivial. And I think I thought that was a great example of a product that like used AI, but then solved a variety of other problems that sum up into a product that's very compelling. And it really did hit a chord with the ProductHunt community.
What do you see as the behavior of like GenAI founders, at least in your orbit?
I don't know if I distinguish between GenAI founders and just like founders in general. I mean, I think like good founders like solve a key problem, solve a really important problem. Often it starts with a problem they had. Like the Toby founders are Spanish speaking, and they've actually like felt this problem of like working across cultures.
Like having a personal connection or having experienced the problem yourself, immersed in the intricacies of the annoyances related to that problem. That's a good sign.
It's a common pattern, I think, for founders, which is like you start by solving a problem that you care about, which means two things. Like one, you have a lot of intuition around how to solve it. And two, you just have a lot of conviction and staying power to solve it. I mean, I think in our case with my previous company with Tandem, we did a few hard pivots. We worked on crypto finance, we worked on personal finance, and then we worked on remote work. And the pivots in crypto finance and personal finance, we launched apps very quickly, like within a few weeks, got signal, reached a vantage point, and then pivoted. We didn't have a lot of staying power on those because they weren't like acute problems we had personally.
Sort of like chasing a trend to a certain extent.
Yeah, or solving a problem for users that we found. It's like we'd been talking to, because of our first portfolio tracker product, we were talking to a lot of fund managers, like hedge fund managers, and we saw an opportunity to solve a problem for them. And so we went after it. But it wasn't a problem that we felt acutely. But when we started working on remote work, our story with Tandem was before the pandemic, both of my co-founders had kids, like within, I think, 6 months of each other. And so we started working remotely because they were new parents. And whereas we'd been working in person before, and we felt that transition acutely. It's like, wow, remote work, we are so much worse remotely than we are in person. It felt like, it's like we were flying in an airplane and all of a sudden we hit water. We didn't feel like a team anymore. So we felt that problem so acutely that when our first attempt at solving it didn't work, we did like 5 more attempts, like very, very different things. And I think that's, you can do that and learn and persist and iterate when you have a really strong personal connection to the problem. So I think that's why you see a lot of founders solving a problem they have themselves.
And it informs a lot of how you design the system around your solution, because you understand the behaviors and the attitudes around it. And as you said, the acute understanding of the problem. It's so important, I guess, as a founder. One thing I want to talk about is your change log in ProductHunt. It's getting really rapid. I noticed that. That's super good. Proud of you. Tell us about the new things that you've launched so far.
Oh, cool. I think the biggest new thing we've launched is called shoutouts, where when you launch on ProductHunt, we ask you, what are the products that were indispensable in helping you build your product? And
interesting growth loop there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the idea behind it is central to, I think, the potential I see in Product Hunt. Which is right now, Product Hunt is the default place to launch. And from the viewer's point of view, Product Hunt is the best place to get a pulse on what's new in the startup ecosystem. But what happens after launch? How do you figure out what products have actual traction? How do you figure out, if I'm trying to look for an observability platform for LLMs, what's the best one? And I think the most powerful way we can answer that is like, what are the tools that the top founders are using? So by asking founders like what they use, we are building this product graph of like what products power other products. And so
that's really smart.
So you'll start to see the shout outs data everywhere on the site, other than the leaderboard. So like when you look at product categories, they're ranked, the best products in a particular category are ranked by shout outs. Like what are the top?
You changed the algorithm.
Not on the leaderboard, because the leaderboard is still new products launching. But if you go and search for CRMs, or if you go and search for, finance software or meeting recorders, those established product categories are ranked by, well, what do the top launches use?
But I think it's kind of harder to kind of game the system, right? Because there are always affordances within a system like that for, people to just hire a bunch of people to upvote your thing. I mean, with launches, right? But then if it's like shout outs, your reputation is kind of on the line. If, I don't know how I feel about that, but
well, we've made it a lot harder to game the launches, right? Like I think Product Hunt has always balanced community signal with like the organic signal of like how much of your product is resonating, and the challenge is our challenge is like balancing those two signals. So we've, without going too much into it, we've done a lot of things to make it a lot harder to game the leaderboard. It's definitely very hard to game shout outs, right? Which I think is appropriate. It's like, yeah, you're putting your reputation on the line. It's not an anonymous review.
Yeah.
It's like you as a founder are saying, I built my product with this other product.
And it's kind of obvious if you're a bot, right? Like, because you have a recently completed profile, you have nothing on your thing.
Well, and if you're a bot, what have you launched?
Yeah.
Right? Like the ultimate weight. The cool thing with shoutouts is like you can see what companies have shouted out this product. So for example, I don't know, let's look at like front end cloud. Like Vercel is at the very, very top of the leaderboard in terms of developer infrastructure.
I use Vercel.
Yeah, everybody uses Vercel, right? Like it's or like Supabase. We actually just did a piece on like what founders are using Supabase for, and you can see what launches used Vercel or Supabase and what they launched and how many upvotes they got.
That's very good intelligence.
So it's like it's not anonymous reviews on the internet. It's like the exact opposite. It's like seeing what companies were built with.
And it feels good, right? Like if you were the company, I don't know if you spoke to the Vercel or Supabase guys or anyone at the top, like if you're the founder, co-founder, you were part of building that, it's another avenue to really see high signal feedback for your product. Because sometimes the feedback's scattered, right? Like maybe it's informed by, or maybe it was directed by bias from, I don't know, association or something else. But then if you see actual high quality people who have launched stuff, giving a shout out to your product, it hits different.
Yeah. The one of the like product theses behind shoutouts was came out of a conversation I had with my former co-founder, Bernat, the design co-founder for Tandem, where we were talking about Product Hunt because he told me about Product Hunt like when it was just a newsletter. So we've been talking about Product Hunt forever. And he said something that stuck with me. He said like, there's no place to show love on Product Hunt right now, like real love for a product. All I can do is upvote. And
it's all new.
It's all new products, yeah. And something I realized about Product Hunt is like, so when you go to after launch, there's something that's unique about the early phases of product. So like from from when you start to get product market fit to those next few phases of growth, those products have had to earn product market fit from incumbents. They've had to be so much better that they tend to
steal market share.
They steal market share. And that's the point of maximal love, right? It's like nobody's really crying from the rooftops how much they like Jira. But
when it's linear, right?
When it's linear, I've heard from people that they actually would leave the company that they work for if they switched away from linear, right? Like these products are, there's been so much craft put into them, and they're so focused in a way that the incumbents aren't, that they create so much love. And the thing that I really appreciate about shoutouts is you get to see that from the community, and we get to capture that and like put it on the profiles of like Supabase and Vercel, and you can see this like wall of love, and it's not, you can't game it and you can't deny it.
It's not just any testimonial thing. It's built on an actual graph of your history of launching and your association to, the companies you've built. It's amazing. Yeah.
And you also get to see like what kinds of companies are built using these products. One example that's kind of fun is Framer. You can build websites. Well, you can see on their wall of shoutouts what are the actual apps built in Framer. You can just like click through and look at them.
That's cool.
So it's a very cool.
And it's a different mental model, honestly. Like depending on who does the shout out and what product it is, it gives you like insight into how these founders think or how these makers think, allows you to copy their, however they're running their companies. I think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it helps you see a little bit into the craft of other builders.
Yeah.
The other kind of insight that brought us there was when you ask people how they decide what tools to use, if they're really connected, if they're, let's say like they know a lot of top tier founders, maybe they're in the Bay Area, maybe they're in Y Combinator. Often what they do is they ask their friends. So with shoutouts, I thought, how can we help the entire startup ecosystem have the same sort of insight as a highly connected like YC founder, where we can bring the network to bear?
What are some reflections that you've had just after taking over the reins of, Product Hunt?
There are definitely some unusual things about stepping into a company I didn't found. Like there was quite a bit of work to get my bearings on like, what is this product? What is this community? Like I had a certain sense from being a Product Hunt user and community member for so long. But I also didn't know the full extent of the product. And it's as a product founder, it was unusual and initially like daunting for me to just like not to know the product, right? I with Tandem, I'd built everything. So every single feature, every pixel on the app, I knew the idea maze of how it got to be there.
Yeah.
I knew
the vision,
why it's there,
yeah.
What worked, what didn't work, where it was going, what it was testing, what we tried before it. With Product Hunt, I didn't even know, and I still don't even know all of the features in Product Hunt. And I certainly didn't know the idea maze of how those features came to be and what we learned from those. So that was like new to step into. But once I kind of wrapped my head around the essentials, it feels just, I think I only have one mode, which is running it as if I were the founder. I think with Product Hunt, it's got this incredible community and leaderboard that happens daily right now, but the potential is so much more that, I'm approaching it in the same way that you would approach any startup, which is like, hey, what are the things that could deliver, 1,000 times more impact, and how do we test them in the quickest way possible? So I'm really happy to hear you've noticed the changelog accelerating.
I love it. Yeah.
I think just like any startup, speed is our main advantage. And the faster we ship, the faster we learn.
It's such an interesting leadership challenge to come into a product that you didn't found with zero. You were kind of a super user maybe. You launched on ProductHunt, but you were there since the beginning with the newsletter. But like stepping in, understanding the whole context, and then unearthing, like unpeeling each layer, but acting on limited information to steer the company direction. That's admirable. Like it's certainly, I think it's very hard. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, it's you're a founder. I think most people I was the CEO of Tandem. I had no intention of ever being the CEO of a company I didn't found. Like if you've been the CEO of a company, it's like a tough job. And I think if you'd asked me before ProductHunt, I would say like I wouldn't do it for a company I didn't start. There's maybe like one company that's an exception.
Like OpenAI.
No, I was saying like ProductHunt.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I think when you step into a company like this, you have to feel a really strong connection. And I felt that, like, I've said this before 100 times. ProductHunt changed my life. It's the reason. Looking at ProductHunt in the early days is a big reason I started talking with my future co-founders about new products we could build. It's a big reason why we left Yahoo and started a company together. We launched on it, and it gave us our first users and allowed us to raise a pre-seed and got us started. It made my last company go viral when we launched and things really took off. So it's changed my life, and it's changed so many of my friends' lives in so many ways, that when it felt like I had the opportunity to shape the next chapter, I just had to step in.
You're the ProductHunt founder. You took over. You kind of see the ecosystem. What are some of your predictions, right? This just based on what you're seeing now, on what will really stir up the AI ecosystem in the near future.
I don't know if I have any particularly insightful predictions. I mean, I think the probably what a lot of people have noticed as well is like infrastructure has charged ahead of applications, and I think applications are going to eventually catch up as well. But actually, we're seeing a great deal of traction on all fronts. I think the one thing you could probably count on is that the infrastructure is going to improve constantly and a lot, over the next, couple years.
And that signals, I guess, to the founders that take that into account when you're thinking about your AI roadmap.
I mean, I think the fact that things are changing so quick suggests to founders that you should move quickly, quickly and be nimble. Yeah,
for sure. How are you integrating like GenAI so far in the ProductHunt ecosystem?
We're using it a bit to assist on moderation and support. We're using it. We're prototyping different ways of allowing you to search or otherwise interact with ProductHunt data and the ProductHunt catalog. I think something that we've been prototyping is like a product recommender. I think that, I mean, we have a huge data set. And so
for sure,
it's definitely challenging to get something like that out the door, but our early prototypes are really promising.
So you haven't launched?
We haven't launched it yet.
Okay. That's very exciting. Something we have to look out for. But then you're the CEO, right? So how are you thinking about that, right? Like you mentioned a lot of prototypes. What goes into your mind when you're thinking, okay, what are the use cases for ProductHunt? Like walk me through step by step how you thought about whether you want to do this prototype or not?
The general principles still apply. It's like for Product Hunt, I think about what's it great at, and then what's the like big opportunity. It's great as a pulse on what's new, and so there's some amount of time and work we put into doubling down on the things that are great right now, and then the opportunity to be really good for more product research or product comparison is huge. And so there's some amount of time and resources we devote to taking kind of shots on goal at that. And so then for working with AI in, infrastructure for either of those goals, we just are pretty opportunistic about what we use and what we try. And I think one thing that's maybe core to our approach is like we try a lot of things. We try out different products, we try out different frameworks, and we see what works.
What's your favorite model so far?
I don't know if I'm close enough to have a favorite model. Like some of the engineers working on it probably have favorite models, but
you're using almost all of them probably. Right?
We've tried a lot of them. Yeah.
I see. So Rajiv, you mentioned you're half Filipino. How does it feel coming to the Philippines?
Oh, it feels really, really good to be back here, and it's awesome to meet a bunch of founders and see what they're working on. Yeah, I mean, I love the food, so that's already been great. Yeah.
But you worked here for a bit, right?
I did work here for a bit, like over a decade ago. I was working at Fairchild Semiconductor.
Just Fairchild Semiconductor.
Yeah, the OG, the first semiconductor company, actually. Very different capacity. I was doing like Lean Six Sigma, like project management and process improvement. But it was, it's fun to get to know a place in like in a very different context. Like most of my memories are visiting family when I was very young. So it's cool to like actually see the startup ecosystem, and it seems like it's really reaching an inflection point.
Yeah, it's very exciting, exciting times.
Yeah.
So, what's your advice to all of the founders that that you're interacting with, you're about to interact with? Like, what message do you have for them as a parting thought on our podcast?
Well, launch sooner. I've never launched and thought, oh, we launched too soon. So I would say go for it. Launch sooner. If you're launching on Product Hunt, shoot me a note, Rajiv@ProductHunt.com. I or somebody on my team will give you some feedback on the launch.
All right. And we'll shoot more stuff regarding that in the future with Rajiv. Rajiv, thanks so much for coming over and being on Fractional.
Thanks for having me.